So, in chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is training us to really perceive the intelligence in the world all around us. He gives us these incredible examples, the strongest of the strong, the most stable mountain, the brightest light, as ways for us to see the divine in action. But right there's a huge risk.
You see, if we aren't careful, this really profound teaching can get completely twisted. And that's the entire point of this explainer. To understand why Chapter 10 was written precisely to stop us from making that one big mistake, the mistake of turning something infinite into a finite checklist. So that brings us to our first section, this idea of the catalog and why it's so dangerous. I mean, if lists are so risky, why does Krishna even use them in the first place?
Well, it's pretty simple, actually. It's because our minds, we learn through examples. We need concrete things to help us grasp abstract concepts. Krishna knows this, of course, so he gives us these lists as pointers. They're just starting points for our perception. Okay, but what's the inherent danger of relying on any list, no matter how profound it might seem? This right here, this is the trap. Our minds have this tendency to cling to forms. A powerful insight can just freeze into a static symbol. And then all of a sudden, real understanding gets replaced by simple memory. We stop seeing the intelligence and just start remembering the example, which of course completely misses the point. But Krishna, he saw this coming. He's super explicit about it. He basically says, hey, these are just entry points. They are not definitions. They are doorways to something so much bigger. So, the big question is, how do we move beyond the limits that forms put on us? Let's get into that in our next section. Krishna is crystal clear on this. Any list, it doesn't matter how long it is, will always be incomplete. And why is that? Well, because forms are always changing, contexts are always shifting, but the intelligence that animates all things, that doesn't change. A list could never, ever capture that totality. And what's so cool here is how you can see the mental shift we're supposed to make. On one side, you've got the trap, right? Fixation. That's the clinging to forms, memorizing symbols, getting stuck on names and images. But on the other side, you've got the real goal, recognition. This is all about seeing the underlying intelligence, about encouraging active perception and using those forms as nothing more than entry points to a much deeper understanding. This isn't about learning a bunch of new facts. It's about developing an entirely new way of seeing the world. So if you misunderstand Chapter 10, you end up asking this question, okay, you've given me a list of all these great things, so which one should I worship? Which form is the best one? But that is completely the wrong question. The real question the Gita is asking us is this. Can you develop the capacity to recognize intelligence wherever and however it shows up? See how it shifts the focus? It's not about devotion to a specific thing, but about the perception of a universal principle. And here's what that actually looks like in practice. Instead of idolizing specific people, you learn to see the order that can emerge even from total chaos. Instead of obsessing over certain symbols, you learn to appreciate the capacity that's inherent in a function. And instead of constantly ranking things in some hierarchy of greatness, you start to see the beautiful coherence within whole systems. This is such a powerful way to think about it. We get stuck on forms because they feel safe. They offer us a sense of certainty. But we have to remember not to mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself. Forms are like training wheels. They're absolutely essential to get us started, but they are never the final destination. So, this is all fantastic ancient wisdom. But how does it actually apply to our lives right now? How can we find meaning without creating idols? I mean, let's be honest, we do this all the time. We create our own modern idols, leaders, this idea of success, institutions, ideologies. And then what happens? When those forms inevitably let us down, we get completely disillusioned. Chapter 10 offers a much healthier, way more resilient way to approach life. It's almost like a practical three-step method. First, we can respect excellence in a person or a system without it turning into worship. Second, we can appreciate a specific capacity without getting attached to its particular form. And third, we can recognize intelligence without projecting all of our hopes and dreams onto it. When you learn to see the world like this, your own sense of meaning becomes stable, not fragile. It's no longer dependent on any one person or any single institution or outcome. You just don't need heroes anymore to feel connected to a sense of order. And really, that's the whole point. The teaching of Chapter 10 isn't meant to give you a smaller, more manageable checklist of things to focus on.
Its purpose is the absolute opposite, to expand your vision so that you can see the profound in everything. Which, leads to a really fascinating question. Krishna has spent this entire chapter explaining, giving examples, pointing the way. But what happens after all the explaining is done? The Gita's answer is direct vision. In the very next chapter, Krishna stops explaining and instead offers a direct, head-on confrontation with totality itself. We are absolutely going to explore that cosmic vision in our next explainer, because here we decode, not preach. Thanks for joining me.